Good afternoon. Glad to be back. Hey, I've been making a lot of these pipes. If you saw my long stem pipe video, I guess people really like them, but they're actually wanting me to make them for them, and so I've made a few. And anyway, the other day I was getting ready to make photos to send to people to let them know their pipe was ready, and I didn't think it looked right just leaning the pipe up, you know, against something. Here's one of them right here that I finished for a guy, but I was sitting there and I was like, man, what could I do to make these photos look better, you know? And this right here is what I came up with. It's just a simple little pipe stand that I made, and I wanted something that wouldn't detract from the pipe itself. So I just made it simply. It's kind of elegant though, you know. It looks pretty good. It actually literally took me 10 minutes to come up with the prototype, and this is the prototype here. This is what I get my measurements and stuff from. But anyway, it made the photos look really nice, and I had a lot of compliments on this thing. I believe I actually put a picture of it on Google Plus, and you know, I think I do. But anyway, I'm going to show you how I do these. Today's not really going to be about wood turning. It's just going to be about making this pipe stand, and I'm going to get started right now and show you how I did that. Okay, for starters, what I started out with was a walnut board. Okay, I cut a piece out of it. It's I don't know, it's just about 1.5 inches wide. But anyway, this is going to be my piece here. Okay, the way I got this angle on the foot here was basically I just eyeballed it. I took a piece of wood and leaned it back here just like this and said, I like that angle, and I traced it off. I just drew it off. I checked it with my protractor, and it's about 55 degrees. So I took it over to my saw and I cut it. I cut it off 55 degrees right here, and then I held it in place while I took a pipe and just laid back in here to a nice angle that I liked. And once I got that, I marked the board at the top up here, and that's my 2 points. Now all I need is a nice curve to match those points. So I used a French curve, which is right here, to mark off my curve. I guess everybody knows how to use a French curve, but anyway, it makes everything tangent, so you get a smooth curve. But anyway, I got the back curve, and then I came around and I wanted to make this one kind of long, more like a foot, so when it sits there, you know, it looks more like a foot. And anyway, I got it drawn out and I cut it out. This was my original cutout here. It's not really smooth. It doesn't look very nice and refined, but you know, it was just a prototype. I was using it only to make photos with. So then I had that. Now the piece that you make your upright portion out of needs to be about 3/4 inches wide, because you know, your pipe stem is gonna lay in it just like that. It needs to be about 3/4 inches wide. Other than that, you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can thin down this section, you can make it wider, whatever you want to do. The base section is 4 inches long. It's out of another piece of walnut that I ripped down 3/8 of an inch thick and 1.5 inches wide. So anyway, that's where I got all my pieces from, and it just all came out of 2 little pieces of walnut right out of my scrap pile. So another use for scraps, right? They're small pieces, and we're going to get started cutting this out. So to start with, and I actually have already traced it out on here. Let me see if I can do it on this side. Maybe you can see it a little better. I just lay this in here, because now I don't have to cut this angle anymore. Now I've made me a nice pattern. Now I've made me a nice pattern that I can go by. I made it from my prototype, but then I refined it down a little better. I've got better curves on it. So I'm just going to trace this out. Oh, by the way, I didn't lose my finger. That one out there. I didn't lose it out here in the shop. That was actually an accident at work, where I'm a firefighter. I've been a firefighter for 25 years now, and that happened while we were trying to extricate a woman out of her car. So, and actually she was out of the hospital before I was. Okay, but anyway, that's got this all drawn out. Now I'll take it over to the bandsaw and I'll cut this out. Now, as you're cutting these out, whenever you trace something and you're going to cut it on your bandsaw, always make sure that you leave the line on here so you can sand off all your marks and you can sneak back down onto your final design. It just makes everything a lot easier for you. Okay. Alright. You can see I've left all my lines. I don't know if you can actually, maybe you can see that. But I've left all my lines. Now I'll just go to the sander and I'll sand all those off and I'll knock off these corners and we'll get that done. But while I'm at the bandsaw, I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing down for my base. Set this for 90 degrees. I'll trim this off. Trim off the end. So now my base is the right size. Okay, at the sander. Now, what I'm looking to do here is I just want to sand the faces on the base, you know, and sand down the edges, and I'm going to go ahead and sand a chamfer on this. Of course, you know, you could do it with, you know, a router or anything like that. You can make it, you know, a little bit less crude, but I like this because it all when it's all finished, it looks hand done. But anyway, we're going to start with this, and then we're going to move. Then we're going to move to the upright section, and we're going to sand it right down to the line, and then I'm going to knock the corners off so I can round everything over and make it look really nice. Okay. Okay, I've got everything square. I'm just going to start working on chamfer. Just going to hold it about 45 degrees. Switching it around. Making sure that these lines line up on both. You have to be careful too. You have to be careful that it stays parallel right here. Just make sure that stays parallel. Okay, it gives me a nice little chamfer all the way. Now, that's the base. Now I'm going to go back and do the thing. I'm going to sand down to my lines first. Yeah. Make sure you get the sides. Just knock off any sanding marks or, saw marks, anything like that on the side, and we have to flatten the foot. Make sure the foot's good and flat, and it is. Okay, go back and chamfer over all your edges. I just chamfer them down to about 45 degrees. And all that's going to do is give me a starting point for my rounding over. Okay. I think we're good here. Alright. I've actually got a little spot right there. I believe I'm going to fix it with some of the sand and dust. If I can get enough of it. I'm just going to pack it in there, and I'll touch it up with some super glue, and it will, or I will use some of the water thin super glue to fix that. All right. Okay. Now sometimes you have a real tight curve. You can't get on your belt sander. So what I do is I use my little drum sander I have mounted on my drill, and I'll just take out these saw marks right out of the bottom there, and I'll just use it right here. I need to tighten that up a little bit, but it's almost done, so I'm not going to worry about it. Make sure you get both sides of it really good. Okay, I've got my nice curve back with no saw marks. Just kind of blend that curve in, just like so. Now, see, no saw marks. Okay, we're good to go. Now we'll finish the final shaping on this thing. Okay, now I'm just going to work on the shaping of it. I've got all my corners are chamfered off on the sander. So now I'm going to take my little file now. It's just a cheap file. I think I got it at Home Depot. It's got a flat side and a rounded side. But all I'm going to do is just knock this chamfer off and make it just round it over, just like I did on the pipe itself. And I'm going to round over both sides of it until I get this thing shaped the way I want it. One other thing you want to do with the top of your stem here is I want to make a mark about halfway. And basically I'm going to take this radius here, and you can use whatever radius you want. I believe this is 3/4 inch. And I'm going to sand out a radius right in here to hold the pipe. right in here so I can hold the pipe right in there. I'm just going to do it on drill press. Just going to sand, run this in here and sand it in. Now you have to be careful that this is, you know, fairly symmetrical. Okay. Alright, we've got our radius cut. We've got this basically rough to round. Rounded all the corners, all the edges. Now I'm just going to sand it. And that's going to be, I'll start with 150 grit. This walnut sands really well at 150. I'm going to make sure that all these corners that I had my chamfer on, that they're very well rounded over. Because my sander over there, my belt sander, I keep 80 grit on it. All I do on it is rough out work. I don't do really any sanding on it at all. It's all mainly just rough out work on stuff like this. But I'm just going to keep sanding on this. I'll go 150 and I'll go all the way up to about 400. Okay, one last step before we can assemble this thing. I've already got my pieces sanded, and the last thing I have to do is I have to put this little dimple or whatever you want to call it in there. What I did on the prototype, I just used a 7/8 Forstner bit here, but what I'm going to do on these from now on is on the lathe. I'm just going to cut out a little dimple right there. And the way I'll do that, it's 1 3/4 inches across, so 7/8 will be my halfway. I'll mark halfway, and I'm going to drop back 1 inch. I've got 1 inch right here to the center on my prototype. So I'll drop back 1 inch from the front, mark it. Now I've got my place for to mount it on the lathe. We'll do that right now. Alright, well, I'm getting ready to mount this on the lathe. And all I've done is I've cut a glue block down. I've got it all trued up on the face. I'm going to mount this right on there with hot glue. Okay. So basically, it's going to be right about there. Now what I've done, I've got my little center mark here. I'm just going to get it on my tailstock, and I'm going to tighten it up, because that's where it's going to be. It's going to swing just like that, and then I'm going to use hot glue to hold it in place. It's not going to take much because I'm barely even going to be touching it, but I'm going to hit around all these corners real good. Alright, well, we're good and glued up now. She turns good. One thing with the scrapers, you should always have almost kind of a negative to it. So your tool handle should actually be a little bit high off center. Make scrapers work better. But what I've done here is I want about a 7/8 hole. So I marked back here, about a 3/4 inch bowl. So I'm marked back here 3/8, and I'm just going to mark it. So I know where it needs to be. I'm just going to come in here with my scraper and just take some out very lightly. Okay. Alright, got everything sanded. Got this finished. I'm sorry. I ran out of data again just about the time I got started hollowing this. But basically all it is I used my round nose scraper, got in here, hollowed it out, and I sanded it. So anyway, we're getting ready to put this thing together now, and all I'm going to use is glue. A little hole right there, but it'll be okay. I want to mount it with the back of the foot, with the back of this part right here I want it right at the top of the chamfer on the back side. So basically this right here is what I'm looking for. And I'll make me a couple of reference marks just to guide me, but most of this will just be done by eye anyway. I can see those marks. Using Titebond 2. People ask me what kind of glue I use and stuff. I use it on my pipes and all of that stuff, but I find it's very strong. But I've used the Elmer's, I've used all kinds of carpenter's glues and stuff like that. They all work great. I mean, you know, I wouldn't say go buy, you know, Titebond 2. Alright, now what I want to do is set the front end first and get everything lined up, because in just a minute I won't be able to see that line. I'm going to kind of hold it right there and press. Put good hard pressure on it to get everything tacked up. And once it tacks up, it'll hold itself. Make a little minor adjustment right here. Okay, good. Now it'll hold itself right there. I'm just going to take a wet paper towel, get rid of all this glue here. I'm just going to wipe the glue off with a wet paper towel. And we'll put some finish on here. I'm going to let all this dry. I'll be back probably 30 minutes or so. Let this cure up real good. And some people say, well, why don't you use some hardware or a dowel or something? Well, you can. Right now, once this hardens up a little bit, you can drill a hole through here, put a dowel in there. I think it would look nice. But I just want this straight up, this look right here is what I like. And that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, sure, you can do anything you want to. But my prototype's no good anymore. I mean, I don't need it anymore. So we're going to see just how strong this glue joint is. Well, you're not going to break that glue joint. You will not. I mean, you might can, but you're going to break the wood first. So I'm not worried about hardware there or doing any other kind of fancy joinery or anything like that. This, I believe, is going to look nice when it gets done. This area right here was repaired. I used the sawdust from my sander and super glue. And what I'll do right there is I've just got a brown Sharpie. And I will just color that up, and it will and when I wipe that off with my finger, just like that, and once the finish is on, you'll never know the difference. Neat little trick. Keep that in your playbook there. I'll be back in a few minutes. Well, okay, the glue's set up good now. It's been about 30 minutes. So it's strong enough for me to go ahead and put my finish on. And all I'm using is finishing paste wax. I believe it's probably got oils in it and waxes and things like that. But I really like the finish on something that's not going to be handled very much. And, you know, people, I don't expect this display stand, you know, to really be handled very much. But I'm just going to wipe it on there, try to work it in real good. Work it in, make sure you get it in all of the, especially on the sides and in the front where the end grain is. Make sure you work it in there really good, so that when you come back and buff it, you don't get surprises. Alright, well, I'm going to set this up. Matter of fact, I'll probably take it outside and set it on my truck. It's actually turned into a really nice day. And I'm going to set it on there. and let this wax dry up for a few minutes, and then I'll be right back to buff it off, and we'll be finished with this old girl. Well, alright, I've let this thing cure now. It's actually been curing for about 20 minutes. I had to get me something to eat. So I got filled up on pizza. Now, all I'm going to do is just buff this out. Now when you buff it, if you use the furniture paste wax, make sure you use a little bit of pressure also, and move, you know, fairly quickly, because this stuff works, I guess, on almost like a friction polish, because it won't shine up any other way. But it really does get a nice sheen. Don't know if you can see that. Here it is. That finish really turned out nice. And that's pretty much that. Got another project done. Really enjoyed it. Man, it really made making my pictures of these pipes a lot better. And this pipe here belongs to a guy named Michael, and I'll be sending this to him with it. You know, minimal tools, simple project, and a lot of fun. Like I say, the other day I made the prototype. It literally took less than 10 minutes. Of course, the finished work, you can tell, you know, is bad. It wasn't sanded real well or anything like that. Oh, one thing with the wax, this paste wax and stuff, if your surface prep isn't right, I mean, if you've got any microscopic scratches in there that you really can't see, when you put that stuff on there, it will stand out like a sore thumb. So make sure that your surface prep is done. Work all the way through your grits. Make sure you get all the sanding marks out of it, because sanding marks they look worse than just about anything. But enjoy the project. Glad to see you here, and I hope you stay tuned for my next video, where I'm going to make a little pipe bowl cleaner. Actually goes into the bowl this way, you know, and you can pick out your pipe, whatever. So I'm going to be doing that. And also it doubles as a tamper to tamp down your tobacco. Alright, a lot of pipe stuff for somebody that really don't smoke. So you have a good one.